In New Orleans, we all know the feeling of being forced out of our homes and the fight to get back. Now, no matter where you call home in this city, we have a special connection to this place. And despite its issues, we were determined to remain. Well, that's how some residents in the River Parish of St. James feel, determined to remain in the place they've called home for all their lives. Some can even trace back several generations, but they say that home is being threatened by the rapid growing chemical industry in St. James. Some chose to move forward while others chose to stay and to fight. We introduce you to one of them tonight in part one of my special report, Victims of Progress.
When I was a little girl, we had beautiful trees, pecan trees, fruit trees. My daddy raised our foods, and we lived off the land. Everything was so vibrant and so pretty, the green grass and everything. Then back in the 60s, that's when the fur industry came down in St. James. Trust in the Lord and do good, that you may dwell in the land and enjoy security. Take delight in the Lord, and he will grant you your heart's requests.
Every morning, Sharon Levine reads the same Bible verse, Psalm 37, the fate of sinners and the reward of the just. The verse is part of her routine of preparation. Armed with her Bible and vigorous spirit, she spends the remainder of her day going to war.
I had 3 calls this morning that I spoke to people.
And what some would consider a modern David versus Goliath battle.
I'm not a public speaker. I don't do anything like that. All I do was teach school, and that was it.
Teaching for Sharon came to an abrupt halt after the school where she'd spent more than 3 decades was closed.
And they sold our high school. We found out it was sold after it was sold. When they called a community meeting, that's when they told us.
Is that where you worked?
That's where I was working. And I retired in October of last year.
Who would they sell it to?
YCI.
Sharon's home sits on Highway 18 in St. James. When traveling down the road that swerves along the Mississippi River, you're greeted with moss that falls along centuries-old oak trees, plantations, and sugarcane fields, once worked by former enslaved people, and the land they acquired after the Civil War, handed down through generations. St. James is also home to an all-too-familiar neighbor dotted along the river parishes. And while that neighbor comes with promise, it leaves Sharon and those who share the long, winding road with regret.
Most of the people who lived around here, would you say that a lot of them are in agriculture?
A lot of the farmers are, a lot of them are, especially way back. But since industry came in, a lot of people sold their land to industry.
In St. James Parish, you'll find most chemical plants, or industry as locals call it, operate in the 4th and 5th district. Now, cows grazing pastures do so with tank farms in the horizon as the lucrative chemical industry multiplies over the years.
They come into this town and just took over. And we didn't realize it until we started getting sick. Then they want to add more. We can't take any more.
But more is proposed to come.
Formosa, and they're going to do business as FGLA LLC, or simply as FG. They're making a commitment today to this project. And the site selection is now formally done. We're excited about it.
Formosa petrochemical plant was coming to St. James Parish. It is proposed to be built immediately next door to 2 existing plants, giving Sharon Levine a new neighbor. She lives less than 2 minutes from the proposed site.
But the meek shall possess the land.
Sharon began to pray.
And I asked God, what should I do? Do you want me to sell my land? And he said, no. And I said, dear Lord, you gave me this home. Do you want me to sell my home? He said, no. Just like we are talking, he said, no. I asked him, what should I do? And he said, fight. This is the garage where it started. Right here, we had our first meeting.
Sharon decided to step out on a battlefield in unfamiliar territory, but she wouldn't be stepping out alone.
I volunteered to work with her and stick by her much as I can.
Milton Cayette Jr., Sharon's brother, says he has worked in the chemical industry along the River Parish for more than 30 years.
Do you ever feel kind of at a crossroads because you've worked in the chemical industry?
Yes, I did benefit to send my kids to school, pay for all their education and all, and help them got married. So they really did help me out quite well, I must say. Can't complain about that part.
Yeah.
But the poison that we were putting out in the atmosphere and in the land and in the water, that shouldn't have been.
The cities along the River Parish corridor have gained the moniker Cancer Alley due to the clusters of pollution and increased risk of cancer. While it's not proven cancer cases are in direct connection to air pollution in the river parishes, Sharon is convinced the growing industry has an impact on those who live around them, sometimes just next door.
Is it a matter of miseducation?
It's a matter of no education. We didn't know about the chemicals. All we knew was the industry was coming in. All we knew was people was getting sick and people were dying, and they were wondering why.
So when news spread Formosa was coming to St. James, some residents of the community of no more than 22,000 organized, forming Rise St. James.
We gave a meeting at my house. I had 10 people. The next meeting I gave in my garage, I had 20 people.
We demand justice!
Still, there was a growing skepticism their voices couldn't overshadow an industry that was attracted to the river parishes and their proximity to the Mississippi River. There were also major tax incentives through the Industrial Tax Exemption Program. Though the program was scaled back in 2016, facilities like Formosa were grandfathered in since they signed their deal 3 years before that reform. According to the New Orleans Advocate, the deal allows proposed sites like Formosa and South Louisiana Methanol to receive 100% property tax abatements for 10 years.
Some of them look at me like it's hopeless, like I'm fighting a hopeless fight, but I don't see it like that.
And neither do those who have joined Sharon in her battle against the growing industry. And those who are now protesting the growth of industry in St. James are growing more and more vocal. But why now? You heard Sharon say the industry came to St. James in the 60s, and some admit they've benefited from working in those facilities. But as the industry grows in St. James, did the parish grow with it? Well, not according to the U.S. Census. In 2010, the poverty rate overall in St. James was 13.6%. In 2017, it grew to 15.6%. So who is taking advantage of the growing industry, and what's at stake for those who live in this community they've been connected to for generations? Here's a quick preview of part 2 of Victims of Progress.
You know, usually when you have plants that come into an area like this, the first thing that's touted is this will bring 3,600, 4,000, 5,000 jobs to the area. How true is that?
I haven't seen it.
And one of the things we do worry about a lot is between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, that landscape is disappearing, you know, at an enormous rate.
Part 2 of Victims of Progress airs Friday night at 10 o'clock. You don't want to miss it.